Dawnlit, pressed against your red lips, bodies dressed against the cold. Taunted by the ghost of autumn, solid blanket in the snow. Let me feel it down the shoreline, heartbeats swaying with the tide. Squander all that's left of daylight. Your eyes staring into mine. Feel it Feel it skin against my own skin, blanket in the snow. Holding you is all I ever wanted, and inside my own head, further down the shore. Feel it Feel it Let me feel it all.
I can't see through the windows, I can't hear through the walls, but I can't live in the middle, afraid of it all. I just need to feel the sun against my skin, 'cause I'm done with the cold. Go where nothing keeps the air from rushing in, so my heart can You and I will be immune to each other, immune to each other. If I can let it be, a woods will rain without water, a rain without water can't douse the flame. I fight fire with fire, no it never ends. I reach higher and higher, only to pretend. As I sink in the quicksand, I long for what I've missed. I fight fire with fire, fire with fire. Spinning out into the darkness, into the darkness. You could save me and be the light to wash my shadows, the light to wash my shadows and steal me away. I fight fire with fire, no it never ends. I reach higher and higher, only to pretend. As I sink in the quicksand, I long for what I've missed. I fight fire with fire, fire with fire. I have eyes to blind me and hands to lead me on. Hear me on. I have ears to deafen, a voice to make my words, make my words. I fight fire with fire. Higher and higher, I fight fire with fire, no it never ends. I reach higher and higher, only to pretend. As I sink in the quicksand, I long for what I've missed. I fight fire with fire, fire with fire. I'm dreaming out of bed, don't you wake me please. Forget what all them said, you're all I need. I'm running out of time, I've made up my mind. I've lied too many times. I'm feeling my way through the night now. I'm growing at ease with the flames. May not always love me, but she does now. I'm looking your way, looking your way. You bring the fire, I'll bring the gasoline, and pray for a slow burn, slow me, but she does now. I'm looking your way, looking your way. You bring the fire, I'll bring the gasoline, and pay for a slow burn, a slow burn. Cause I'm burning, I'm burning. Cause I'm burning, I'm burning. I'm feeling my way through the night now. I'm going at ease with the flames. May not always love me, but she does now. I'm looking your way, looking your way. You bring the fire, I'll bring the gasoline, and pray for a slow burn, slow burn between you and me.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Thank you for joining us. Happy Wednesday and a great evening to all of you. I want to just say thanks to our special guests who are joining us today. Let's see what, I don't know, maybe layout makes the best here. I don't know. Let's maybe do this. How about this? There we go. That's better. We got to see. We have to have John and Graham in bigger squares. But no, I'm so excited to have our guests on today, and I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Seth, Matt, Jessica, everyone for joining us in this live stream. So this is a really exciting show and topic, and obviously this is very divisive and a polarized discussion, as some of you have been seeing on social media. But I want to use this opportunity to talk about the report. I want to actually open some discussion up to both Graham and John. Both of them they're a big deal. What can I say? They're a bigger deal than me. I hate it when people introduce me. So I'm going to actually ask both John and Graham to introduce themselves. And I'll warn you, they're such a big deal, they'll probably be very modest. But John, since you're on top, why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay, well, you'll leave the best to last. Yeah, John Murphy, in the context here, one of the co-chairs of the security work group within HL7. Been working in the standards space for a long time, ending up always getting pushed into the security realm, even though that's not particularly where I'm best skilled. So I'm excited that you've had the opportunity to use your skills to show us, some of the stuff that I've been, saying, hey, it's not just FHIR, it's not just, patient data. You also have to secure it. So I'm excited with the report that came out. I disagree that it's divisive. I want it to be seen as a catalyst, if anything, not divisive.
John is a glass is half full kind of guy. I'll just. But thank you for your positivity, John, and both you and Graham are dear friends. So thank you so much for joining and for your input on that. So Graham, how about you? Why don't you introduce yourself for our audience?
Hey, yeah,
for people that have been living under a rock.
Yeah, I'm a farmer from Australia. No, not really. I didn't grow up on a farm, but no, actually, I accidentally ended up working in healthcare IT. Tried to contribute at HL7 and kind of got frustrated with where things were. So I created FHIR because I thought that's where we should be. And then everybody jumped on board, and I've ended up spending my whole life basically running the FHIR project. I'm officially FHIR product director and responsible in the end for, getting the credit for thousands of people's work, including John, who's a good friend, and all these people contribute, and I get the glory. So how does that work? But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see the security lens pointed at real implementations. Of course, it's going to be controversial. Some people are discomforted for various reasons, which we should talk about. But in the end, we'll get better security outcomes, and so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Graham, and I appreciate that.
And one of the discomfort word, discomfort, not divisive.
Yeah, we'll go with discomfort.
I was very uncomfortable reading your report.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that means a lot coming from the both of you, and I agree. Let's use the word uncomfortable. So just some housekeeping rules. I just want to let everyone know in chat, your chat messages are being restreamed and reshared on the screen. So let's all keep it clean and fun. There is a strict policy regarding use of certain language. So I know that there will be some uncomfortable people as well in the audience. But we do ask that you post your questions to the chat. I do want to run this as sort of like an AMA. So, actually it would be more like an AUA, or Ask Us Anything. I mean, you have the creator of FHIR, you have the co-chair of the security working group for FHIR. We've got some, like I said in the title of this stream, legends in FHIR. So it gives all of you an opportunity not just to ask me questions about the report, but also to ask Graham and John what their position is on it. And there have been quite a few tweets on Twitter about the report, as well as some of the other sites. I definitely do want to thank Graham for his post on health intersections. I would love Graham to talk about that site as well and the article. But I want to start off, first of all, by saying that I don't want to talk at my guests. I don't want to talk at all of you. I really want this to be conversational. We do have a few topics that we want to address. First and foremost, I want to address the report, what it is, what it isn't. And really, I want all of you to understand that it's not like I've printed a picture of the FHIR logo and I'm throwing darts at it. I have
Everybody
no problem with that. Well, that's probably a whole other show. The fact of the matter is that I think FHIR is obviously a very good thing. I mean, I always thought it was weird, when I would go to a new hospital or a new doctor, that they don't have access to any of my records and any of my previous health conditions. A lot of people don't know this, and I've been very private about this, but I've had my own battle with cancer. I have a autoimmune disease. And, for me, being in really a constant state of pain, I would say, like, that whole 1 to 10 scale, I'm like at a 7 or an 8. Some days it's really bad and sometimes it's a 10. But, my health is so important to me, obviously, and the records of where I've been and the medications that I'm on and the things that my treatments, those are all very private to me, of course. And so privacy around my data, while still enabling data sharing, I'm a huge proponent of. I don't want everyone to think like, oh, Alyssa's throwing mud at FHIR. She's just out to get us. This isn't that. This was a point to try and spark public discourse. And John and Graham, please interrupt me at any time, because I have a tendency to hijack meetings. But I want everyone to know that I want to bring in a collegial sort of effort to try and get everyone involved in a discussion that's very important to all of us. 25 years ago, hackers were defacing websites. Now it's about monetizing data that's been stolen. It's all about for-profit hacking, and data is worth more than Bitcoin at this point, right? So a single PHI record is worth 1,000 times more on the dark web than a US credit card number. And there's a reason for that. And what I have seen as a hacker in doing this vulnerability research for the last year of my life, there's a lot of data in patient records. There's a lot of data in hospital admission records, and that should be properly protected. So we're going to talk about this idea of clinical data aggregators. We're going to talk about this concept of third-party app developers, and we're going to address some of that uncomfortable, those uncomfortable feelings that some of you may have. There have been some tweets on Twitter regarding this, so let's talk about it. So I want you to know that there's nothing against FHIR. I also want to address some of the points and some of the tweets that have been posted today. Understand that there are going to be some people that feel like they're on the receiving end of this report and are naturally going to put themselves in a defensive position. Some of the tweets that I have put, and John's nodding his head, I know he agrees, is some of the tweets you can tell is misinformation, and clearly the person didn't read the report, or that unconscious bias is settling in, and they're reading the entire report and they're looking at it through a skewed lens or a biased lens. And so when all of you are out there on social media and you're reading a report as uncomfortable as this, understand that what someone is posting out there on Twitter is going to be slanted. It's going to be their opinion. It's going to be their perspective of the report. And my suggestion to all of you, and this probably goes further into the whole fake news debate and all of that, everyone has a microphone today. Everyone has an audience today. Everyone is their own PR company. So understand that when you're reading stuff online, and go read it for yourself. This is a free report. We're not charging for it. I do want to address the point that I think Graham brought this up. There's some people who are mad that it's gated. Okay, look, this has been a year of my life. And so a client sponsored this. This was not for me to go out there and see how much I can a client sponsored this. They are in charge of how they distribute it. They paid money for this research for the last year. You have to understand that they're going to want to collect something in return for that money. In the case of business, it's leads, it's sales, it's opportunities. It's going to happen. We all have to kind of keep the lights on. So be patient with that. Be understanding of that we all kind of have to keep the lights on. So I want to thank Approve for this research, for sponsoring this research. There was, an effort that I maintain in all of my reports, and all of my followers out there who I absolutely adore and love know that in a lot of my reports, it's adversarial content, and I try and maintain a sense of credibility and integrity in that report, and I don't let it get turned into an advertisement by the company. Every step of the way in writing this, I limited how much we put in there. I think there's one bullet point where I said one of the APIs was instrumented with Approve, and I wasn't able to actually communicate with that API because I didn't have the right token. I think it was one bullet point. And at the end, there wasn't about Approve. So there was this comment made that they didn't appreciate the framing of the report. I don't know what that means, because to me, it was just me producing a report on the outcomes of my vulnerability research into aggregators and third-party app developers. Let me say that again to all of you. This is not vulnerabilities in FHIR. These are findings of hacking third-party app developers and aggregators. The issues are in the implementation of FHIR. You don't go to Best Buy and buy a shrink-wrapped FHIR API with all the security baked in. I'm sure Graham and John would love that, and as well as HL7. But there's no shrink-wrapped FHIR API. It's a blueprint for how that's implemented. So I want to mention that, and also, let's talk about why people aren't happy with the report. Fors and against. John, Graham, I will get off my soapbox. I'll open it up to the two of you.
Yeah, I think one of the things, in addition to what you just said, one of the things I think that might be what people are reacting to is there's been a long, drawn out, difficult struggle against blocking. And that community might see a report that says, oh, FHIR is horrible. And they may think this is just, going to re-energize this blocking, effort. Oh, I can't implement FHIR because, it's not securable. That might be. I haven't seen actually indicators of that, but that might be another aspect. By the way, I like that you handled that question in the report itself too.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, John. That's a good point. And Graham, I know you want to jump in here. I do want to introduce our third guest. She's near and dear to my heart. I absolutely love and adore her. Nina Ali. I'm sure the both of you also know her. She's how would I describe you? The head of the Biohacking Village. Executive Director of the Biohacking Village. For all of you who were not aware, I actually spoke at DEF CON 29. Actually, two presentations at DEF CON, and one of them was at the Biohacking Village. So I want to thank Nina for giving me her platform and microphone to talk about hacking FHIR implementations. So Nina, welcome to the party.
Thank you. I'm excited. Sorry. I just got here, so please continue. I will.
So go ahead. So go ahead, Graham. You wanted to jump in.
Yeah. So I mean, a couple of things leapt out at me. The first is HIPAA is a Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Portability, and yet most people are familiar with HIPAA as a grounds for denying portability. Right? Misused. Oh, HIPAA says we can't do that. And here's another report. Data is not secure if it leaves our provenance. And the details just don't matter, right? Hospitals and so they go, well, we're not sharing data with anybody because, and it just stops at the because. And so some people are just pushing back against that, saying, we can't, this is just another excuse for not sharing data. And I predict that totally your report will be used that way. And that's one thing that people are pushing back against. Another thing I want to quote from your report, adverse that to recommendations for healthcare providers, overall, you must put in place a plan to protect data even when it has left your system. That's kind of hard, given that I was in the discussions between the vendors and the providers at ONC. ONC's like the patient has the right to the data. You can't not give the data to the patient because you don't like the security implications of it. They have the right. And so if the institution shares the data with a third-party aggravator, it's the institution's problem to get it right. They absolutely have to have a plan. But if the institution gives it to the patient, whatever the patient does with it, it cannot be the institution's problem. But then whose problem is it? That's an open question that's not resolved politically. And, I think there's water to go under the bridge there.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, whoever offers patient services, they should be really embarrassed by this report because none of the stuff you found is rocket science stuff. It's all like sweep the corners, close the doors, close the drawers. Did you dot the T's and cross the I's? It's really...
I felt bad saying that she used kindergarten cybersecurity. It's like,
Don't feel bad. It's true.
She's got a PhD for crying out loud, and you only had, she only had to be able to say her ABCs.
Well, no, I appreciate that, but don't feel bad. Here's the thing. All right, I want to make 2 points because Graham brought up some good points too. So first of all, I want everyone to know that I actually worked with a lot of the big EHRs in this research. I reached out to Graham. I reached out to John. I reached out to the industry in a partnership with this. I had a one-on-one with Anish Chopra. He and I talked. But here's the thing: a lot of you need to understand again that I want to underscore this because it's a very, very important point to make. John talked about this as well, and the fact that these are very remedial issues. Like, it's very easy to discover a broken object level authorization or BOLA vulnerability in an API. You're just basically authenticated and you're requesting data that doesn't belong to you. So, if you look at the report, it's pretty much all BOLA and broken authentication, right? And one of the findings, and we can talk about that, but in one of the findings, there was excessive data exposure, just logging in into one of the APIs and being flooded with patient records, just logging in. Right. So, and John, much to your point, it's not like I had to write a buffer overflow here. I didn't have to write a .c file, compile it, and throw a Python script at it. Nina, jump in here. I know you're not.
Okay. So there was some conversation on Twitter about how there was that some of these things perhaps needed more validation, etc. Um, there's there's a lot of opportunity here because the medical industry itself, right? Nothing is necessarily secure. Everything is secured in a silo. So it's that one device that gets secured, and then it's the devices that get secure, and then it's the devices within the EMR that get secured, and then it's everything within the system that gets secured. So and there was a comment about like where is the rest of the proof that goes along with this, but I almost feel like if you had put in the rest of the proof, Alyssa, that if you had put in the rest of the proof of this, that would be a major massive vulnerability disclosure slash breach that would have put a lot of people in jeopardy. There was conversation about why isn't this put into a peer-reviewed journal, and that's not necessarily how the hacker community works, right?
Yeah.
We have more conversations internally. We put things out and we say, this may be a real thing. This is what we found. You can verify it on your own. Here's our vulnerability disclosure. Here's our moment. And then the conversations can pursue and persist from there. So I feel like this is a moment where the medical community can say, okay, this might be a problem. Yes, let's look at the facts. Let's look at the information that we have and move from there, rather than just putting up the barriers of like, no, this isn't a problem. We know nothing about this. She's definitely wrong.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because look, there's this whole debate, and this came up in my last report with the financial services community when I hacked those 30 banks in less than a week through their APIs. It's well, how come she didn't follow proper disclosure here? There were no companies listed. There were no, and also I mean, it gets to a point where if I had put in more screenshots, I'm like you mentioned, Nina, number one, there might be an accidental disclosure because I forgot to blur something. You get to a point where you don't even know what you're looking at anymore because there's so many redacted black boxes. And then the other thing is, at what point does it get to where she's disclosing so much data? She had to have followed open disclosure, proper disclosure processes. And also, look, we all know what's about to happen. Let's point the pink elephant out in the room. I think, John, you brought this up, or Graham, you brought this up earlier in our chat, is there's going to be a wave of black hats coming now that are going to be looking for those squishy APIs as a result of this report. Why am I going to feed the black hat community more data than I already have? And, here's the exact, I felt that there was a sufficient amount of fidelity and just detail here in my findings, and describing the tactics and techniques I used, the tools, what the results of those API requests were, without actually disclosing patient data and some of the other sensitive data that could possibly harm someone. Go ahead, Nina.
So I had a conversation today earlier about how the hacker community needs to be more embedded in what the medical and device and biomedical, all the things are doing, because we don't want to hurt the people. We are trying to help the people, and it's always that idea of, well, you're a hacker and you're trying to hurt us, and we don't necessarily have to be bad actors in this.
I'm not out. I'm not out to hurt anyone. I'm a content creator, right? I'm blending hacking with content creation, filmmaking. I'm not out to get anyone. And so, if any of you feel like you're being put in a defensive position because of the support, and you have to defend yourself as an aggregator, defend yourself as a third-party app developer, the impetus here is just for you to write more secure code and do a better job at protecting our patient data. John, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I do want to point out there are companies that are healthcare companies that do have mature, cybersecurity departments that are focused on, getting the products into as secure a position as possible. I think one of the problems that we have today, and I'll say with FHIR, though it's not really with FHIR, is that we have a lot of new entrants into the community, which is good. It brings in a lot of creativity. I love it. I don't want to discourage it, but a lot of that doesn't necessarily come with the massive organization that has a cybersecurity background to it. Now, I think that some of the intermediaries and aggregators that you did approach should be expected to have that kind of expertise. So that's why I was a little bit more frustrated. But I came from GE, and there we did have a pretty big security group that was focused on getting the products in as good of shape as you can. But yeah, so I don't want to say that this bolus of bad examples is, just expand that out. Oh yeah, it's 100% of the community is this bad. It's just, it shouldn't be this easy. Especially the thing I keep pointing out is the apps and services that you researched on came to you and said, yes, we want you to research on our interfaces. So
right. Yeah, it's exactly.
Do.
Yeah, exactly. And, I do want to make a point, and you bring up a good point, and I want to make this abundantly clear to all of you, especially those of you who did not read the entire report or misunderstood parts of the report. First of all, none of the vulnerabilities, there were no vulnerabilities found in the EHR companies themselves. There were no vulnerabilities in those EHR companies. These vulnerabilities, these issues were found because of a lack of hardening and secure code development with the integrators and the app developers. That is an important distinction here. Nor were any vulnerabilities found in the FHIR standard, right? So, we're talking about implementation here. And yeah, I agree with you, John. I think, with there's a very important point that needs to be made here. It looks like we lost Graham, unfortunately. Hopefully he'll rejoin. But there's an important point that needs to be made here regarding John's point on size of the security team. And resources. At the end of the day, one of the most important things that keeps coming back to me is in talking with these developers is, the company sends everybody to security awareness training that they have to take as the employee body, but we don't get any secure code development training. And so I'm a big proponent, and Nina, I'm about to say this, I'm a big proponent of shift left security, where security should be baked in while the code is being written. Not shield right once the code is compiled or deployed.
But okay, let's have a conversation about that just briefly. So hospitals work at a deficit. So if we are bringing in all of this different medical technology, whether it be the EMR, the medical devices, etc., how are the medical hospitals community supposed to verify that yes, this works in tandem with this is going to be great, we're going to pair it all together? So what are we doing about those sort of things? We can do as much secure software development as we want, but if things are not working together, that creates a very different paradigm. This thing works in a silo, and we are not paying enough attention to that.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, security co-chair of HL7, and I have tried to get a community who is sharing. Hey, I just found out that that this might be a better tool to use for that, or I noticed that in the Happy Toolkit, if you don't do this first, this happens, and that discussion just hasn't been able to get going, and right now, I'm far more interested in letting the clinical model part of FHIR, that build, and I expect that at some point the security will become interesting. Hopefully, that's tomorrow. But yeah, I think that is something that's missing, and I don't think that HL7 is succeeding at being the place where those discussions happen, because they need to be as blunt as possible. And
do you think is it like politics, or like what is your, like, describe the perfect world for me on that, on where where those where should that discussion be happening? Where should, if it's not at HL7 and they're failing at it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of discussions around hey, I'm using FHIR, I'm using CDS hooks, I'm having problem with this functionality of CDS hooks. So there's sharing of technical problems that are very focused in FHIR. I think the problem is that as soon as you have cybersecurity problems, and the vast majority of the things you found really are not FHIR specific. They might be RESTful API security specific, and
More
that
like
level of conversation, the FHIR community apparently doesn't want to talk to FHIR community, and I just don't know, where that discussion is happening. Do you? I mean, it's got to be happening.
It's right now. It's happening on Twitter with these threats. But
rolling into that conversation, where are we doing test models on all of this? Where are the different parts of the conversation happening, so that it broadens out to everyone else and say, this didn't work, but this might work. Let's reformat. Again, the conversation that I've had earlier, it's let's have more conversations about the failure reports rather than like, we did all of this and it succeeded. Cool, but what did you do before that showed that this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work?
Do the both of you think that it's the typical age-old problem of pushing quickly to try and just get things working and get things out and get either like getting to R5, R6, whatever, like the rush to get to the newest version and get it working versus, where security is an afterthought?
Yeah. I don't want to be so condescending to say it's an afterthought, but it's not the most important problem they're dealing with. The most important problem they're dealing with is, I have a database that was designed, 30 years ago, and I have this kind of data. How do I get that into FHIR? Or, so they're dealing with far more clinical layer stuff, application layer stuff, and the session layer stuff. They're just kind of hoping that it will happen. Now, I don't think the hope is without possibility. I think, to your point, it's better to have security designed in from the beginning, but we are so much on the bleeding edge that it's hard to design security into, I have no idea how we're going to use this resource. We're not even using that resource anymore. We're now using this other resource, and
keeping up with adding more resources or,
or a blood sugar used to be a vital sign, and now it's a laboratory result, and so there's all kinds of those kinds of discussions that are eating up the intellectual space, and
So go ahead, Nina. Two-prong answer. So I have yet to see anyone pull together a hospital model to test all of these things out and see what happens if. And the other part is, because of the pandemic and prior to the pandemic, we've come to this model where digital health is so big and so vast, and we're now able to do these longitudinal clinical trials. So how is FHIR going to help execute, encrypt, safeguard all of this information that's going from, let's say, my house, my network, to the hospital network, and hence so forth, wherever else it's going to go? So there's so many different pieces and details that are now embedded in this conversation.
Yeah, it's so what you're saying is what you guys are saying is it's not simple. It's not a simple answer. I'm hoping that there are some of you, even though there's some. I've created some friction with some folks on Twitter, and hopefully there's some of you who do feel like this is a good step in the right direction, and bringing this important discussion, opening that up to public discourse. Welcome back, Graham, by the way. I'm glad
it's a pleasure.
I was starting to think, we pissed him off. He left. Welcome back.
My network didn't like it. And my daughter was on a Zoom phone call for Zoom remote schooling, so she wasn't happy either.
No.
This could be good or bad. It's up to, it's up to a combination of the data aggregators, the data providers, and the regulators to decide whether this is good or bad. We could say it's good. Hey, actually, we've been caught with our pants down. What we can do is make sure it won't happen again. I'd love to see the data aggregators form an industry collective and set themselves some minimum standards, and then stamp all of their apps and say these conform to our minimum standards. Our guarantee that we're not getting caught with our pants down. That'd be really good. It'd be really good for the regulators at Congress level to pick it up and say, we have failed to regulate healthcare information once it's left the scope of the entities provided by HIPAA. One of the real challenges is you can change your identity. You can't change your healthcare information.
Good point. Good point.
You can't. You can't fix that. So we can't. People can't deal with that. So the risks are much greater. I mean, changing your identity is bad, right? That's just horrible. But you can't change your health.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Graham, because I've said time and time again, this is so different than the Equifax breach or anything else. You can put a lock on your credit report and take steps towards fixing identity fraud. And the bank can send you a new debit card in the mail if it's been compromised. Who's going to send you new patient history if it's been compromised? Now, I do, and Nina, I'll go to you in just 1 second. I do want to make one final point regarding this. I want to talk about clinical data aggregators. So now I know, and I want to thank all of the people that are with us today. We have a significant audience, and I appreciate all of you taking your time out tonight to be here. There are some people in the audience who don't know what a data aggregator is. So in the healthcare space, right? You have and John and Graham, please feel free to jump in here and add to this, but or Nina. But in healthcare, you have these healthcare providers. You have healthcare payers. They're running their EMRs, EHRs, what have you. Fill in the acronym here, and then
and before you go on, I just want to point out you didn't penetrate the EHRs.
Yes, and again, I wanna point that out. I did not penetrate the EHRs or the healthcare providers. There were no vulnerabilities found, and they worked very closely with me to make their FHIR APIs available to me for testing. There were zero findings there, so I want to make that. I want to applaud the EHR companies as of the current version. As of their current implementations, I did not find anything. It may change tomorrow, who knows? And so then now they have their own EHRs, right? You go to XYZ hospital and they put in your data and you're in their EHR, okay? Then there are clinical data aggregators who are actually pulling that EHR data out of those databases and systems at the healthcare providers and aggregating it into a massive data lake. Okay, so there's these healthcare providers and payers, and then the aggregators, and they're pulling all this data. And I know John has a lot of opinions on this, so we'll get to that. So what I found was I was down here going after I kind of feel like I have a whiteboard, but I was down here with the healthcare providers testing those. And in phase 1, I did access millions of patient records because of vulnerabilities in those APIs, but they were not FHIR APIs. I want to make that clear. And then in phase 2, I found no vulnerabilities in those FHIR APIs, and then I started testing the aggregators. I didn't understand what they were initially, and I had to go to John and say, hey, John, tell me what the heck this company is. I've never heard of this before. What the heck are these guys? And he had to explain data aggregators to me. And so I started testing them, and that's where all of the vulnerabilities were. And here's the thing that all of you need to understand. Hackers, we're not going to go for the path of most resistance. We're going to go for hackers are extremely lazy. I'm extremely lazy. I'm not going to work smart, not hard. Why go after the individual healthcare providers when I can just hack the aggregator and steal the data from them? They're aggregating data from thousands. One aggregator that I hit was aggregating data from over 20,000 healthcare providers. 20,000. And
they cleaned it up for you. They cleaned it up for you. Got rid of the duplicates, got rid of the dirty data.
Yeah,
it was
they did
rich
so much
data. Yeah.
I should pay them. I should pay them for their hard work, But yeah, so that's what a data aggregator is. So John, I know you, and actually I promised Nina I would let her talk. So Nina, you go, and then John, I'd love to get your opinions on aggregators. And also Graham.
So with some background, I worked on EMRs for 16, 17 years.
Oh,
I know about
Jesus.
7 of them, so this is my heart and soul and all the things in between. And I have always told people, while we talk about devices and preach that devices are a major, big, very, important deal, I can take one device or I can take the whole EMR, and it's a very different concept right there. Um, and then we just lead up in between. But the origin that a lot of folks don't know about EMRs is that originally, like, cardiac had one, and then OBGYN had another, and general practice had another, and then eventually they just kind of like bubblegum and taped it all together so that it could become a thing and work together. And a lot of hospitals are still in that sort of shift phase where they worked on something but they liked another EMR instead, but they still have to pay for that old EMR, and they may not be paying for updates, and they may not be paying for whatever Microsoft background that belongs to it, and they're still working on this new EMR. So they're carrying two different versions of the same or similar instance. So we may not be paying attention to this one port that's open, and we can now have access into all of the things. And I think that's something that a lot of hospitals and healthcare folks just generically forget of. Oh, that's right, we did have this one over here, and it's not a dead instance, but it's something that is laying low we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and before I go to you, John, Nina makes a great another great point. Also, I want to bring up what Matt Lee just said in chat. For those of you who are monitoring chat, he just brought up the point that it's the typical MSSP argument. That's a good point, John and Graham, as well. Is look at the MSSPs that are getting hacked. Hackers have gotten smart, not that they weren't ever not smart, but hackers got smart and said, why hack the individual company itself when I can just hack the MSSP who has the keys to the kingdom? I can hack the MSSP and get, hundreds of victims by hacking the MSSP, or I can just try and go after and hack hundreds of companies. What's the easier route? So, John, we'll cut to you. I know, Nina, you want to say something about it, and then I'll get to Graham. John, I know you have a lot of very, passionate points on the aggregator thing.
Yeah,
so,
keeping my glass half full concept, aggregators do provide value. There is a lot of dirty data. There is a lot of data in weird formats that they will normalize, and there is.
So they're doing a good job. They're doing there's value
doing
there.
a service. It's not always clear who they're doing that service for, or that they're not also doing that service for things that are not as transparent. I think that's where I get into the biggest concern with aggregators, is that the transparency is not exactly all that clear. But yeah, you're totally right. Why would I bother going to a Fitbit device when I could go to a bigger device, or all the way up to an aggregator who's doing nationwide aggregations?
Good point, John. Graham, why don't we cut over to you? What's your whole opinion on this regarding, the EHRs, the aggregators? What's your 2 cents?
Obviously, the aggregators are doing a service that someone's paying for, and someone sees that there's value in it. But particularly aggregate. I mean, this is true in financial industry, right? How many people hack banks versus how many people hack the data? Financial estimate data aggregators, right? The data aggregators don't care because they don't have, they don't lose customers directly.
Yeah.
They might lose consumer, they might lose their business customers, but they're tied up. It's a huge transaction cost to change. And are any of the others any better? So they can kind of get away with it collectively. And it's a real shame that it works like that. But there's a cultural transition to be had. When I first started working in the hospital years ago, the hospital keyboards all got worn on the numeric keypad on the numbers 963 and dot, because every single person's password was 963 dot, because you just run your finger down the keyboard, because no one cared. It was just something was in the way of actually saving patients' lives. And that would no one in a hospital would dream of that today. because they understand that there's a big picture, and it's not just a tax; it's actually an investment. So you really have to move the data aggregators to that point. And as far as I can tell, anything that moves companies like data aggregators is significant financial penalties, either from their customers or from the regulators. And so one piece of this, which will obviously generate real pushback from the data aggregators, is what's the financial penalty going to be? Now, if they're really good and they can pick up their shoes, pick up their socks, and show by paying white hat hackers that they really have cleaned up their act, then maybe they don't deserve, significant financial penalties. But what's the choice? I mean, they can't leak information at all, let alone easily. I'll probably get in trouble with some of my, community members for this, but they've got it. You just can't have this, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, someone's got to go after the people who gave them the data. And like I said, it's a totally different thing between a social media-based company that can convince patients to give them data that the patients got from the hospital. That's a totally different path than the hospital gave it to the data aggregator directly, which is what I imagined. If you got 23,000, institutions, you're getting it from them directly to provide some kind of service.
Right.
They're going to be punished for not, not responding to this.
Yeah, you make a good point, Graham, and Nina, I'll cut to you. But you make a good point. We all need to make it clear that data aggregators aren't just serving, Joe Public. It's yes, I was able to log into one of the aggregators and add my different, my chart logins and all that stuff for all the other HRs and bring that data in for me as a consumer, as a patient. But they also sell to the providers. They're also providing a service to the providers, and Graham, you bring up a good point. They're serving two masters, right? So, Nina, I'll cut to you on that.
More than two.
Yeah, that's true. More than two. And then after Nina, I know you want to opine here, but one of the things that I want to also cover next is Graham's point about the penalties, the fines, because that's been in the news lately. So Nina, go ahead.
So I'm invested in this part, this regulatory part. There was an article that came out today, I think, on FedScoop called White House Developing Bill of Rights to Protect Against Data-Driven Technology Abuses. Another point in here is what or how are the regulators constructing new laws, rules, regulations, standard audits, metrics, procedures to forward think what is currently happening? Or are they? Is it something that, how do we invest more in that community, in that side of the community, to say these things are happening, we're not sure if you're thinking about them or how you're thinking about them, but this may be a really good fundamental start to producing better laws and regulations around it.
Yeah, and I'm, and that's a good point, because the fact of the matter is that I'm just a content creator. I'm just a breaker. John, Graham, you're both closer to the regulatory side than I am, and so keep me honest here, but isn't the ONC, aren't they currently debating that as far as how to add the sharp teeth to this and with the information blocking rule and fines and penalties around that still hasn't been fully figured out yet. And Nina brings up a good point. Just, now there's the big, the big government is trying to figure this out and putting sharp teeth on this.
So the ONC are kind of the middleman in all this. They represent the government to the industry and the industry to the government, and they're absolutely subject to all of the pressure from paid lobbyists and so forth. I've seen that in person, and they attend all sorts of industry provider, healthcare, IT. They get pressure from all over. They talk to consumers. They get pressure from consumers as well. But one thing that really stands out to me about the ONC, Mickey Tripathi is a friend of mine, a great guy.
Oh, wow.
And absolutely receptive to the message. But the ONC is absolutely flat stick doing what it has to do. It's funded to do what it has to do. And so the real pressure is to go to Congress and say, and the EHR vendors and the providers are going to be on your side, because it burns them that they're subject to more restrictions than some of their competition.
That's why they liked me so much. I thought they were like, oh my God,
I may count you a little bit on this. So EMRs were originally put into the 21st Century Cures Act, and maybe like 20 minutes later, almost immediately removed. Because then it was like, oh, that's going to be a big issue of correcting them and regulating, and how are we doing all of this? So
I didn't know
that's my
that.
pushback.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was totally invested in that.
Yeah, and really ONC can only write guidance within what the regulators have written. So no, they can't really make the kinds of changes that that we need.
So wait, you're telling me that they actually are just their role really just is redlining. They don't actually create it from scratch.
Well, they advocate and they collaborate with Congress.
Okay.
And they play the bi-directional role, but the budgetary alignment is Congress makes the rules and ONC enforces them.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So they've passed up many of recommendations to Congress to, hey, we need this written, and it doesn't happen for various obvious reasons to all of us. But yeah, but they're still the right group to start with. As Graham points out, they are the ones who can best understand when we say X, plus Y is producing Z, and they'll understand that. So I really think they will be receptive to this output.
Yeah.
Do we also get to involve the FDA and OCR in this? Only Office of Civil Rights, only because the FDA has the devices that are bringing all of that medical information into the EMRs, which are overseen by ONC, and then OCR, Civil Rights.
Yeah,
then
OCR is the enforcement arm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so OCR is the enforcement arm, but they're the enforcement arm for the regulation text with the interpretation from ONC. FDA is a little bit more free to write actionable rules, but they also are just about as limited. But yes, and they do talk to each other. They do work together. There's an intentional wall there, but they do absolutely work together. Not as much as we'd like to, but that's also because of political pressure.
So let me. I've been dying to ask you guys this. Who on Capitol Hill do you think this report is pissing off? Like, what do you think is the response or the facial expressions of anyone on Capitol Hill that's heard of or is seeing this report right now? Like, do you think, are they upset? Are they happy? Are they glad? Like, what is going to be, and what governmental bodies do you think that this creates friction with? Is it the ONC? Is it?
So I've met with a couple of elected people on the Hill. Okay. They're going to be looking at this going, we want information to be shared. We want it to be shared securely. They'll be turning to their aides and their department saying, what's going on? Why don't we have levers here? Because sooner or later someone's going to ask me about this in a town hall meeting or something. And so that's them. It's the lobbyists, and so they'll just be concerned about potential blowback, because security issues have a habit of blowing up in ways they can't predict. Yeah. And that's the political view of it. And it's the lobbyists paid to get, concerned about this. The data aggregators will have lobbyists in the pocket. That's what you do. And so those lobbyists will be, jumping up and down. But almost certainly those lobbyists are at least somewhat conflicted, because they won't only be in the pocket of the data aggregators.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So as far as the report goes, Graham and John and even Nina, like what part of the report was probably the most surprising to you? Like what I know, John, there were several points where you kept messaging me. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this section. Oh my God, I can't believe, it's what in particular, like anything in particular, the report that just kind of screamed out to you like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
Page 16.
Okay. For those in the audience who don't know page numbers, what would page 16 mean? Let's elaborate on this.
Oh, it was just all that. It was just it was all bad news.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it ends with, oh yeah, and there was this patient empowering application for which all patients' data was downloaded to because they trusted the app to only show you your data.
The data
Like,
filtering.
what?
Wasn't that amazing? That was amazing.
Yeah.
It was like not even first year hacker school. It was like first day
this is
hacker school.
Yeah, this is a common thing in clinical practice, right?
Mm.
Just to be clear, you
Really?
had also
hold on, John. I want you to talk. I really want you to go deep into this because I didn't know that.
Yeah, you did kind of send some negative signals about a clinician having access to data beyond the patients that were assigned to them, and it's actually pretty typical that clinicians are told don't look at patients who are not assigned to you, but they're not technically held because code blue, and all of a sudden,
right.
Yeah, they spend their life getting dragged into other cases on the sly.
Yeah,
you can't wait for to get approval or anything.
Right. So it's pretty common for clinicians to get everything,
Okay.
and be told by policy, which by the way you actually do see in history, where clinicians, nurses, and doctors are actually called, on the case where, hey, why were you looking at Britney Spears' data? She's not assigned to you.
Yeah.
And people are getting fired because they're looking at the audit logs and saying, hey, the audit logs say you did this and it's not your policy. I don't see that there was a medical emergency for why you were looking at that data. So audit logs are the way that clinicians are remediated for going outside of policy, but patients,
exactly. It was one thing when I was logging in as a clinician and accessed all the patient records. It was another thing logging in as a patient and accessing all the patient records. It was like there just wasn't the sense of, what would you call that? Just like, granularity around scopes. I mean, can we talk about OAuth scopes? And let's talk about that in the FHIR standard, because I know OAuth obviously is covered. Yeah, we'll work out. Yeah,
there's version 2 coming. There's version 2 coming. That's a little better.
V2 you were hitting /V1. V2 will be out soon. That fixes that. But we put that in production just for now. Graham, you had something.
The bit that really surprised me was that in 2021, someone would release an app API combination and assume that the app was secure and they could trust the users of the API. I mean, it's 2021.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is
this is
1991.
Yeah. Kindergarten level stuff is what the Australian government's up to with COVID apps. So this is an entirely different subject.
Yeah.
But it's pretty.
Maybe that's the next phase of my research is COVID. No, just kidding. Go ahead. Yeah, but no, that's a good point because I mean it's. Don't give me any ideas, guys. No, go ahead, Nina.
My surprise page was page 18 because one, I love numbers. I love any kind of statistic, and that's the page of numbers.
You're a stats girl. You're a math girl.
Yes, I am. And the other part is that it took so long for someone to come up with a report like this. This is not the first time. I'm almost guaranteeing this is not the first time that this has happened. And it's just now that all of these things are coming through.
Yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of and I think actually this has been brought up several times in this panel is that this hacking was all very easy. It's just load up Postman or load up Burp Suite and you're good to go. But here's the thing: is the hacking part was actually the easiest part. It was. Actually, Nina, you brought up the numbers. Trying to come up with the numbers for the infographics. It's like, I can create these 3D infographics and these illustrations just fine. I can, pump this out in Adobe Illustrator. I'm good to go. But what numbers should I use? Should and Graham, we had a conversation on this. Should I break the vulnerabilities and issues out by version of FHIR and that they were running on? That's that numbers questions because the PR people. And Graham brought attention to the SC magazine article that came. There were some inaccuracies in there. No, I definitely, I applauded the journalist. She great writing, but there were some inaccuracies in it. There were the problem is, and I don't know if you guys want to talk about this, but I mean, I think there's so many parts of this that are more arcane, and so, and I think, and even looking at some of the Twitter feeds, some on this hashtag, just monitoring the FHIR hashtag, you can tell that some people don't fully understand what I said in the report. You can tell that they didn't understand a sentence. Like, first of all, let me make this abundantly clear. There were several tweets that went out that said I only tested 3 APIs. That's not what I said in my report. All right. There were a number of APIs I tested for the aggregators, but the total number of APIs was a lot more than 3. So again, misinformation. Be very careful about what you read out there about this report, and go read the report for yourself. Nina, you were about to say something.
Can we talk about the implications of the report? Like,
yeah, please. I wanted. This is a
very
important topic. Let's talk about the implications.
So, national security are an issue.
Yeah.
This is a lot of information. It's not just one person. It's lots of people.
It's millions. It's millions. It's not even thousands or hundreds. It's millions. And that's the thing is, and Nina, thanks for bringing that up, because I do want to say this, because I think John asked me this on LinkedIn. I stopped at 4 million because I could have kept going. I ran out of time. You guys, like, it's so, like, I think what one person made a tweet that, like, oh, I expected more in this. Like, okay, you do this for a year, juggling it with 12 other clients and, taking care of my family. I got stuff to do. I don't have time to sit here and hack FHIR for, all day long, every day. So yeah, relax. Anyway, go ahead, Nina. Sorry.
And just
implications.
As a chemical reaction, right? So it's the national risk on this, and then yields international affairs issues, because this is not just an American issue. This goes broader.
No, that's a good point. Let's all say this together. Health level 7 international. This is a very, look, Grant's joining us from Australia. And by the way, hashtag I love your accent. Love the Australian accent.
Speak more Australian.
But it's just, that's the thing is it is an international problem. And I do want to make this point. It's my favorite quote, and I start out a lot of my conference presentations with this. Anonymous quote: if I wanted to instruct a hostile nation state on how to take down the United States, I would tell them to start with the APIs first. Our entire infrastructure is APIs. The entire plumbing is APIs. Financial services, APIs. Healthcare, APIs. All of you saw my hacking federal and state law enforcement vehicles, which affected every Ford on the road. APIs. Mobile apps, APIs. It's all APIs. So great point, Nina. This isn't just the APIs that Alyssa selected to hack. This is a global problem, because there were many aggregators that were not U.S. companies. I'm gonna make that absolutely clear too. Maybe that should have been an infographic too. John, you're about to say something.
That would be more pertinent, because there's so many different regulatory environments. The Australian government has been particularly leading a charge, not very publicly, but within the healthcare system and with the healthcare vendors, around China-proofing healthcare apps.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's an interesting topic.
Yes, we have very strenuous rules around MSSPs, cloud providers, which staff can have access to production databases at admin level, national security checks, those kind of things. It's been something they've been really paying attention to the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's a good point. Go ahead, Nina. Yeah.
So as a fun part of this, so a lot of the IP intellectual property is made in America, and then the actual device is made in China. So they're using their parts to do all of the things and then send that worldwide. Also, when software is put into China, they make you fill out a form. And one of the boxes that you must check says, is there any encryption in here? And if you check yes, they are very weary about that. But they've already got all the software. They've already got all of the things that we've been working on. So how are we as a nation going to start working on reshoring some of those things and bringing things back to the home base? to create rather than offshoring everything and creating vulnerabilities where they don't need to be.
Yeah, good point. And I think that's a great segue into this final question. And the final question is this. And I'm actually going to have us end with John's question that he actually posed to me on LinkedIn, and that's okay. The expected with the EHRs, with the healthcare providers, they're going to be doing penetration testing, or should be. The healthcare providers should be doing penetration testing, assessments, whatever. Or if it's the app developer, whatever. But what about the patients? The patient engagement app. How many of you, raise your hand, how many of you actually know John Doe or Jane Doe on Main Street who's going to download a patient engagement app and then quickly load up Postman or Burp Suite and do a pen test against the API? Like, what do patients do? How do we solve for this, everybody? What do we do here?
Yeah, and I also threw in there, that's why we have seatbelt laws, because the common person driving a vehicle does not have the ability to evaluate the safety of a vehicle. That's why they have crumple zones that have to be tested for. So, I hate asking for regulation, but, the common person just is not capable of assessing whether the application or the service that they're using truly is secure. Now, this is not to say that the ONC's view that, hey, if the patient says, EHR, send my data to this app, that the EHR should question that. I'm not at all doing that. What I'm saying is that's the right policy, but you also have to give tools to the patients to let them understand the decisions they're making. And now's a good time to do that. We're not too far.
Yeah. It's still pretty early, right? Yeah. The average home user, the average patient doesn't have a cybersecurity budget. They're not going to go out and hire Breyer and Thorne to do a penetration test of the patient app they just downloaded. Graham, do you have any input on this concern or this question?
Yeah, I do. I mean, this is not a new subject at the consumer level. It comes up across your entire suite of things you can buy or opt into. And we have a number of tools to bring to bear: professional associations, technical standards, court system, regulators, legal, law, and the degree to which you get involved with any one of those depends on the economics and whether any of the lighter options work. In this case, we need to throw all those things at the problem to some degree. But, I'd start with industry associations and technical standards first. The technical standards exist. But are the industry associations, do they care, or do they want to go the regulation route? It's kind of up to the industry in a way, right? They can choose and say, well, they're not going to do anything about it. We'll let people regulate us. I think it's a bad choice, but it's often a short-term perspective that industries choose.
Yeah. Thanks, Graham. Nina, save the best for last.
I may have... I may dissent on this one. There are very different levels of technology that we are building towards, and there are very different generations that we're building technology for. So greatest generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, everybody's got a very different background on how they work with technology, how they feel about technology. And we have to create technology that works for all of those people. And when the pandemic started, there were a lot of issues with the disinformation. And we have to rebuild that trust in science and how medicine works or doesn't work, and be brutally honest about the whole thing. Also, when we work on the teams for medical devices or EMRs in general, integrating the teams at an earlier stage, instead of it being that we're just going to put security in there and it's going to be great. Instead of it just being an SDLC, it has to be a secure software development lifecycle from beginning to end.
Agreed.
Continuous.
Yeah, continuous, a continuous OODA loop, right? Continuous plan, do, check out, continuous improvement cycle. Well, listen, I know and I agree with all of you, and I think this was the most important point made tonight, is that I don't think this conversation is going to stop here tonight. I think this just it's like it's like that quote about the butterflies flap above a butterfly's wings, and I think, and I'm hoping that this report does spark continuous public discourse. I'm sure this conversation is going to continue to be had and continue moving forward. And so I appreciate all of you. I want to thank my guests, Graham Grieve, creator of FHIR, John Murky. Is it Morky or Murky?
Murky.
Murky.
Just murky. He's a murky man.
Murky.
When things are not very clear, think of me.
Okay, gotcha. Co-chair of the security working group for FHIR HL7, and Nina Ali, the executive director of the Biohacking Village. I'm so grateful to have had all of them as guests on my show. I appreciate their support over this past 6 months as I worked on this research. I want to thank all of my guests for joining us as well. I apologize we didn't get to the Q&A. We went way over, but I think this conversation probably could have lasted all night. And we just have incredibly smart people at the table right now. And to be able to assemble this many amazing people in one single show could definitely have continued going. So I want to thank them. And I want to thank all of you for your support, for my followers out there who are supporting the report, and appreciate your guys' input. For those of you who are watching this video recorded and not live, put your comments on the video. What do you think is the solution here? What do we do regarding these issues, and what patients can do who don't have that cybersecurity budget? And when you think about the aggregators, what do you think that they should be doing? And the providers, what should they be doing as it relates to their relationship with and we didn't even address the supply chain security concern, an issue here. So, and a lot of companies are getting popped from their suppliers. So, where does that conversation fall? So, and most importantly, especially in today's world, this is very important and near and dear to me, is to tell all of you to take care of yourselves and take care of each other. So thank you, all of you. Thank you to my guests. Everyone have a great night. Thank you,
Thank you very
John.
much.
Thank you, Graham.